Welcome to Practicing Photography. My name is Doug Gabbard. Getting better one photo at a time. Or at least I hope I am. I hope you are too. So before I get into the tips today, what did you think about my intro screen? It's new. I created it. It's 5 seconds long. Is it too long? Is it too short? It's just right. Did you like it? Don't like it? Let me know in the comments down below. So today's topic, let's get right with it after that. We're going to talk about aperture priority and why it's a good thing to do. So I have five discussion points about aperture priority. So tip number one, why aperture priority? Well, if you're in automatic and you're stuck there, aperture priority is an obvious choice to try to get yourself out of automatic and into manual mode. Point number two, when the lighting is changing, if you're in a street photography, it's probably my best example where it's a sunny day, you're going to have places where it's shady and places where it's sunny, and you can make adjustments to the aperture to compensate for the difference in lights. Number three, aperture priority is good for portraits. Portraits typically have backgrounds that are blurry, so aperture priority gives you control over what's in focus and what's not in focus. So that's tip three. Tip number four is aperture priority is a choice because you can make very quick adjustments. You don't have to think about ISO or shutter speed for the most part. You can make adjustments to compensate for the light very quickly with little thought. The fifth tip is a carryover from last week. Tip number five. You ready? Tip number five is put your camera back in auto. If you're just learning how to get off auto, don't leave your camera in some mode that you're just learning. Put it back in auto. That way if you grab your camera for that bird that's sitting on the branch right outside your window and you've got some crazy setting that I've suggested you try, your picture may not turn out the way you want. So set it back to auto for now. Once you get better and you start learning the different modes a little bit more in practice, which yeah, you need to practice, you will get better and you can start leaving it in something other than auto. But for now, let's put it back in auto. So those are your 5 tips. Start with aperture priority. Use it when the light changes frequently. It's great for portraits. Number 3. Number 4, it's a good choice because you can make quick adjustments. And number 5, put it back in auto when you're done. So when would you use aperture priority? Here's a bonus discussion. This is not one of the tips, this is just a discussion. You heard me talk about it a little bit. So aperture priority, and this maybe will be next week's video, is what's in focus, what's not in focus. Portraits are a good use for aperture priority. Portraits are a good use for aperture priority because you want the background to be blurry and the face and the body to be in focus, the person. Or maybe it's a flower. You want the one flower to be in focus and those in the back not to be in focus. Aperture priority is a good mode to use that for. Street photography is often a common setting for taking photos because, like I said up above, and one of the tips is the light tends to change because the buildings create shadows and things like that. So aperture priority is great for that. Another common use for aperture priority, and this will be my last one, is for landscape photos. The opposite of portraits, you want more in focus, so you're going to have a different aperture setting. So it sounds like I've got my topic for next week, and I will be making that shortly, and we'll be ready for it next Thursday. So if you're liking my tips, if you're liking my instructions, give me a like and a subscribe down below. And this is Doug Gabbard from Practicing Photography, and I'll see you next week.